Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So today's episode's all about overpowered uncommon commanders. Now, just because a commander is determined to be uncommon or rare or mythic doesn't really determine its power in the actual game of Commander. Just as there are incredibly underpowered mythic rare commanders, there are actually some really overpowered uncommon commanders. In fact, some are so powerful that the question might be, how are they actually determined to be uncommon in the first place? But that's a different discussion for a different day. And actually, on that note, let's clarify one thing with some honorable mentions. Commanders that you won't see on this list that are actually very powerful and are actually listed as uncommon are Jalira, Zana, and Shirei. Now, the reason that I'm just mentioning them here and not including them in the list is because they originally were printed at Rare. Yes, it might be a technicality, but I do recommend that you go check out their deck techs because they are a lot of fun and very powerful. In fact, Zana was one of the first decks that I built for my own collection and one of my first episodes as well. Regardless, let's jump into the list of the overpowered uncommon commanders, starting with the Desecrator. And of course, we're talking about Tormod the Desecrator, a 4/2 zombie wizard that costs 3 and a black, and it's actually from the recent Commander Legends set. It has whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a tap 2/2 black zombie creature token, and it's got partner. This commander immediately caught my eye when it was spoiled, and yeah, creating a ton of zombies is a lot of fun and can be a very powerful thing. Now, typically when it comes to this kind of a card, it's usually only when a creature leaves your graveyard that you actually create that token, but this one is different, it counts any card. There is that restriction though with that one or more, so you can't just mass exile your graveyard, but if you can pick off your cards one by one with different effects, then you can really create a zombie horde to take over the game. And on top of that, it's very flexible with that partner because again, you can bring another powerful commander along with it, along with that commander's colors. When it comes to building a deck around Tormod, look for cards that mill yourself repeatedly like Perpetual Timepiece. And then you're also going to want repeatable ways to get cards out of your graveyard like Withered Wretch, which has pay 1, exile target card from a graveyard. So essentially, in this deck, this is pay 1, make a zombie. And then you're going to want ways to finish off your opponents, so whether that's pumping your army or using something like Shepherd of Rot to drain everyone out. And Tormod's actually the newest addition to my personal decks, well I should say Tormod and Kamal, and I've been having an absolute blast with it. So if you want to learn more about that deck and see the full deck list, go ahead and check out this episode. Anyways, let's move on to our next uncommon commander, which actually has a place in that Tormod deck with the Grim. And I, of course, am talking about Sir Conrad the Grim, and yeah, definitely lives up to the name. Not a very happy-looking guy. But anyways, you're going to be pretty happy when you play with him because he's a 5/4 human knight that costs 3 black and has, well, a lot of text, so here we go. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. Oh, and you can also pay 1 and a black and each player mills a card. So yeah, Sir Conrad is like a Zulaport Cutthroat on steroids in your command zone. He keeps track of creatures dying, being milled, or leaving your graveyard and then punishes your opponents accordingly. So yeah, it can definitely be a fantastic finisher in a lot of decks, including my Tormod deck, but it actually is a commander that can really stand on its own as well. So for a Sir Conrad deck, you're probably going to want a creature-heavy deck with creatures that can either mill yourself or your opponents or both. So a creature with Dredge like Stinkweed Imp can be fantastic in this deck. And then a card like Mindcrank can just be game-ending. It says whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from the top of their library into their graveyard. So Sir Conrad pings each of your opponents, they mill 1, if anyone hits a creature, it does it again, and so on and so forth. And then a big thanks to Eddie for recommending this next card for my Tormod deck, Tortured Existence, which is a fantastic card and it won me a game last night, is also going to be great in this Sir Conrad deck too. By paying a black and discarding a creature card, you return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So as long as you've got 1 creature in your hand and 1 in your graveyard, you can just keep exchanging them for just a black. So with Sir Conrad, you're basically paying a black to deal 2 damage to each opponent. So yeah, 1 black mana for 6 damage is pretty cool. But yeah, if you want to check out that original Sir Conrad list, go ahead and check that out in this episode. Anyways, let's move on from mono black and onto something different with the Druid. And in my opinion, this just might be the most overpowered of all the uncommon commanders with Tatyova Benthic Druid. Tatyova is a 3/3 Merfolk Druid that costs 3 green-blue, and she has, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Yeah, in all honesty, I'm not really sure how this was ever marked as an uncommon. Landfall, draw, gain a life is an incredibly powerful thing. So powerful that aside from being an incredibly powerful commander on its own, it's definitely an auto-include in basically any landfall deck that has these colors. The amount of life gain and card advantage this commander can give you is absurd. It benefits you heavily from doing what you already want to do in a game of Commander, which is ramp. So you cast your Harrow, congratulations, you just drawn 2 cards and gain 2 life. Oh, what's that? You also have a Rampaging Balos in play, now you also get 2 4/4 Beast tokens. And of course there are other really powerful landfall effects in this deck as well, like the Retreat to Coral Helm combo, but it's kind of convoluted so I'm not going to get into it on this episode. But if you want to see that combo as well as the full list, go ahead and check out this episode. And I believe like my Zana episode, this is one of my first ones, so there's probably some new cards that you can add into that deck as well. But now let's go back to another monocolored commander with the Flame, and you can probably guess by this name what color that is. So if you guessed red, you're correct because it's Valduk, Keeper of the Flame. A 3/2 human shaman that costs 2 in a red and has at the beginning of combat on your turn for each or an equipment attached to Valduk, Keeper of the Flame, create a 3/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste, exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. So Valduk is an extremely aggressive commander that can go tall and wide. You can suit Valduk up and then finish off one of your opponents with commander damage while at the same time swinging your giant army of red elemental creature tokens at another opponent to finish them off. So this deck's going to be looking to suit up Valduk with as many things as possible as quickly as possible. So things that are free to equip like Shuko can be great in this deck. And though you can win through combat with those elementals, you can also take even more advantage of them with something like Warstorm Surge. It says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player, so now that's basically a 3/3 damage for each of those creatures. And of course you can use Sundial the Infinite Shenanigans to just make those creatures stick around. But again, if you want to see the full list, feel free to go check out the deck tech. But next up, let's move on to a newer commander with the Dead Tide. And of course, I'm referring to Arami of the Dead Tide, which is a 1/4 Merfolk Wizard that costs 1 blue-black. She has tap exile cards from your graveyard equal to the number of opponents you have. Target creature card in your graveyard gains Encore until end of turn. The Encore cost is equal to its mana cost. So by Encoring, you basically exile the creature card and pay its mana cost. For each opponent, you create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn. If able, they gain haste, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step, activate only as a sorcery. So assuming that you've got 3 opponents, you basically get 3 copies of a creature from your graveyard temporarily. But yeah, that's an incredibly powerful thing, especially considering creatures with big ETBs or LTBs. So with this kind of a deck, you want to utilize creatures that can help you mill yourself like Stitcher Supplier. And again, powerful ETBs like Sepulchral Primordials can gain you a lot of value. With 3 copies of the Primordial and 3 opponents, you're getting 9 creatures in total from their graveyards. Or you can just drain your opponents out with Gary because, you know, he's kind of powerful too. Now, while I don't currently have a deck tech built around Arami, if you want to see an episode where I talk about different cards that would work well in this deck, go and check this episode out. But next up, let's move on to the second to last commander that we're going to be talking about today with the Generous. Now, this commander, as well as the next one, can be incredibly powerful when built around specific combos. And for the Generous, I of course am talking about Grumgully the Generous, a 3/3 Goblin Shaman that costs 1 red-green. It has each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional ++1 counter on it. So you of course can build a non-humans deck that focuses on ++1 counters, but the more powerful way to build this is Persist. Because when a Persist creature dies, if it doesn't have a -1/-1 counter on it, it comes back into play with a -1/-1 counter on it. But thanks to Grumgully, in addition to that -1/-1 counter, it comes back in with a ++1 counter and then those cancel out, so it just comes back with no counters. Which means basically that if you've got a Persist creature in a sacrifice outlet, you go infinite. So let's just say you've got a Lesser Manticore in Goblin Bombardment, and you're good to go. With the Bombardment, you sacrifice a creature and ping something for 1, so yeah, you can just infinitely sacrifice that Lesser Manticore and ping down all of your opponents. And their creatures too if you really want. Now there aren't too many Persist creatures in Gruul, but there are plenty of creature tutors like Court of Calling that can get you there. And now let's move on to the final uncommon commander that we're going to talk about today with the Captain. And again, like Grumgully, this one can be very powerful because of a combo. So when I'm talking about the Captain, I of course am talking about Siona, Captain of the Pyles. She is a 2/2 human soldier that costs 1 green-white, and she has, when she enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal an aura card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. But more importantly, she has whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a creature you control, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. And that effect can go infinite with the card Shielded by Faith. Shielded by Faith is an aura that gives a creature indestructible, but more importantly for this deck, it says whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may attach Shielded by Faith to that creature. So you cast your Shielded by Faith and attach it to a creature, then you make a 1/1, then you move Shielded by Faith to that 1/1, then you make another 1/1, then you move to that 1/1, and you see what's happening here. And of course, to get to this Shielded by Faith, you can use some tutors like Open the Armory, or use some enchantresses like Satyr Enchanter. And then with your infinite army of tokens, you can find a few ways to win from there. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again, and have a good one.